discussing this in whatever capacity you're here, welcome to. I hope you don't mind if we just introduce the conference just a few minutes before we kick off with the papers. The reason we're here, the reason we're gathered here for this conference is two books. The first one, of course, is a large book, which is Herodotus, here tied together with elastic bands, it's falling apart in my copy. And by happy chance, tonight, in fact, a new translation of Herodotus is being launched. I've also brought to show you Tom Holland's translation is being launched at a grand event in London tonight, which I think is a sign of how evergreen, as Tom Holland says in his introduction to the book, Herodotus is. And the responsibility of this conference is further evidence of that. And the second book, of course, is a short book, much shorter than Herodotus, Fornara's essay. Fornara's essay stands out in a number of ways. Obviously, it stands out for many of the themes which are associated with it. The exploration of the Athens-Sparta conflict, how that forms a thread, a red thread, through the histories as a whole. Fornara's insistence that Herodotus needs to be read in the context of his own day, that he interpreted the past by the present, and it's from that phrase that we took the title for this conference, although I realise in retrospect probably should have called it not the past in the present, but the present in the past. Maybe it goes both ways, and we certainly had in mind both, and also our own present as well as the present of Herodotus' time. It also stands out, though, within scholarship for its style, I think, and its fantastic brevity too. Its argument is passionate, it's kind of sinewy in tone. It engages throughout with a whole range of scholarship, past and present, focusing sharply on the ways in which interpretation has forced, in particular, a developmental model onto Herodotus, and trying by contrast to break through that. It's a lovely phrase he uses repeatedly, which is talking about theories as having the smell of the lamp about them, by contrast trying to kind of get through to what we might call, a feel of real life. And it offers not just reading of one theme, although it tends to be identified with that one theme, but an interpretation of the histories as a whole. Herodotus' contemporaries, in the final words of the book, judged him from his work without attempting to explain the work in terms of its position in the family tree of historiography. We too should regard him without such prejudice. Splendid ending. What we want to do in this conference then is to revisit the themes of Fornara's book afresh in the light of the explosion of scholarship on Herodotus of the last 40 plus years, for which many of us in the room have to take responsibility, the vast amount of scholarship which is now necessary to read. We also, though, want to adopt something of the tone of Fornara's essay, the approach. Above all, I think, the sense of its commitment to the text, to Herodotus and to its understanding. One side effect, perhaps, of the large quantity of work on Herodotus in the last 20, 30 years, in particular, is a kind of fragmentation in approach, a failure of to engage between different approaches. So we've consciously recruited a lineup of splendid speakers and respondents with very different approaches, with different interpretive skills, precisely to ensure that kind of engagement between them. We've asked speakers to pick on either a theme which is rooted in the essay, or to pick on a particular passage to start with close reading, and to argue from the particular to a larger perspective. We've also left lots of room, I hope, for discussion, which we'll have both at the end and after the papers. We've got an hour for discussion. Papers we've asked to be 30 to 40 minutes, so there should be ample time for everyone to be drawn in. And I hope as a consequence of all that, the conference will be polite in the sense of our not engaging in fisticuffs and shouting at each other, but not polite in any kind of 18th century mannered way. I want people to say what they think, and I think Liz is committed to this as well. We want proper dialogue between participants, not the, what one often gets at conferences, a little bit of polite murmuring after each paper and then you move on. We'll be very disappointed if we don't have disagreements aired through the conference. We're thrilled to have Charles Fornara here in person, at the back of the audience. Charles, will you wave? It's particularly appropriate the conference should happen here in Columbia, where Charles did his BA. We're also enormously excited to have such a cast of speakers and respondents here to be part of the conference. And just a brief word from me, I'm also enormously grateful for the support we've had, particularly from here in Columbia, both practical and financial. I'll do a quick check of the financial backers, the Lodge Fund, the University Seminar in Classical Civilization, and not least the Centre for the Ancient Mediterranean here at Columbia, John Percival Postgate Trust in Liverpool, without whom this couldn't have happened. And I'm also enormously grateful to the organisers all here, Matthias, Jerry in the department, Selina Rivera, and I should say, because Liz won't say it, Liz herself, because as I said to a couple of people with embarrassment before this conference, in retrospect, a thoroughly cynical thing to do, to organise a conference that suggests it happens in the other person's university, because they get to do all the work and you can just enjoy it. So thank you especially to Liz. I'll now hand over to Liz, and then I hope the work can begin. Thank you.
I won't say anything long as an introduction. I just want to say thank you to Tom, first of all, who created the concept of this conference and really thought this was a good time to address some of the salient themes that Foreigner brought up so wonderfully in his short book, hitting all the major points that have come to be very important over the last 40, 50 years of scholarship now. I want to thank Tom for that, but I also want to thank all the speakers, because many of them, almost all of them, have come a very long way. And the response when we wrote with the idea of the conference to looking at the topics of Foreigner's book was immediate. I mean, everybody accepted our invitations with great enthusiasm and didn't bat an eye about coming to make this huge trip to speak. And we even found out people had papers up their sleeves that they always wanted to give on the subject, and it was wonderful. So that's the next order of thanks. And then third order of thanks, which really is up at the top, is the helpers we've had. Matthias Hanses has been wonderful in organizing so many things. Many of you have had email contact with him. Jerry Visco, our administrator, is going to be responsible for all the wonderful provisions here, and Selena Rivera is off in the office doing that work for us behind the scenes, and that's been enormously sustaining. And then finally, I really, over the last few months, getting all the emails from people who were interested in coming to the conference, from all kinds of backgrounds, from people who are classicists from different places around the world that you wouldn't necessarily expect them to make a big trip, or from people who are in other disciplines who always loved Herodotus, or people who are school teachers or graduate students. And that's been enormously sustaining. It's always wonderful to, A, feel like the things that you think are important are also important to other people. And I mean, working on Herodotus, as everyone knows here, is a thorough pleasure, because you get to engage with a great mind who has a very strong ethical set of principles. And what's really I found very moving is that people feel that these topics that we are going to address, that Charles Foreigner brought up in his book, are actually really very important today. And are not just professional classicists coming to talk about this text, but a lot of people who can see that Herodotus did tap into something that was universal, or something that was transcendent of his moment, and still was a good way to think about issues that are plaguing us, or of interest to us, or important to us today. So I'm just very grateful that everyone came, and I won't stay more because I'd like to hear papers. So anyway, thanks for coming.
Okay, we'll now go straight into the papers. Enthusiastic. I won't attach the microphone to myself, otherwise it'll take too long to attach it to John in a second. It's a great pleasure to introduce John Villery from Virginia, Professor of Classics, Virginia. John's well known for his work on Xenophon in particular, but also increasingly for numerous articles, enormously interesting on a variety of topics in Greek historiography. A lot of them, like the very good article on Cambyses and Pascal Quarterly in 2005, on the interface between Greek and non-Greek traditions. And related to that, we're talking today on Herodotus and Herodotus. Thank you very much, John.